Good evening and welcome to episode 43 of the Eve Prosper Market Show. I'm your host Lockefox, and we have quite a show in order for you today. First, we're going to start where we usually do, which is looking at the graceful view of the Jita Undock with some quick show news. If you want to tune into the show, all you got to remember is Eve Prosper. That'll get you to Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and the blog. We're live every Friday, 0300 Eve time. That's a time change in-game, but not a time change in the US. We're still broadcasting Thursday nights US. It's just that daylight savings is over. So, also, make sure to tune into the blog. I just posted a post about monetization and doing more with this particular project, and I'm looking for feedback. So if you guys want to contribute, there is a survey on the blog. You can go to bit.ly/prosper survey, all lowercase, all one word. That'll take you to just a quick Google form. There's like 8 questions on there. I'd love to have your guys' feedback. The long and short of it is YouTube Red feels like an opportunity to turn on monetization without bugging anybody. If you have strong opinions one way or the other, I'd love to hear them. Also, if you want to support us more directly, which has been our only form of monetization up to now, we do have a Patreon at patreon.com/eveprosper. It really does keep the gears moving and the show running on this end, keeping it from taking food off of the table kind of thing. So I really do appreciate everyone who contributes there. And lastly, before we get into the news in game, I'm still looking for suggestions for people to do market maker interviews with. We hear a lot from FCs and alliance leaders and meta project leaders like Angel Project and Signal Cartel, but we don't hear a lot from like industrialists and builders and Devfleet guys. And if you know someone who should be interviewed, I would love to hear it, because trying to find these guys is a real pain in the ass. So with that, we're going to start with the news like we do every week. The big news before this morning was that CCP Quant released his data for the month of October. This was basically what he put out during the eVegas talk, except more in blog form. And it was really great to see all of this. I'm not going to go into a lot of depth into what he covered, because I'd rather have you guys read CCP Quant's words. He does a very good job. I really like his blog. He makes wonderful visualizations, and I don't want to steal them. The 2 cents I do want to put on is that I'm hoping that he publishes a lot of this data raw, so we can make some visualizations here. Specifically, there are a couple of pieces of the picture that are great to know in the grand scheme, but are less useful in the data he's published is very interesting, but there's a lot of it, and I'd rather trim it down to maybe a third or a quarter of its size for you guys, so that Quant can release his numbers, and then the following week we can do a review of Quant's numbers, Prosper style. I'd rather add value than just read the dev blog to you. So the first piece, the couple of pieces I want to touch on just really quick though, the PCU number is one that has been worrying, to say the least. Especially that we've stayed long and flat into the summer and Aegis, and haven't seemed to have brought back that steam, especially since usually this time period from October to January is a positive one. So that's a little bit worrying. I have opinions about this. I don't know how much I really want to talk about it on the air yet, so we're just going to leave it at that. I trust in CCP, but MMOs are in trouble across the board. The terribly blurry graph that's up on stream now is net imports and exports of exotic dancers, female by region. Go check out this on his blog. He points out that there are a couple of wormhole regions that top the importing charts, which is interesting. And then exotic dancers male, so that both sides can get theirs. Also had some huge wormhole activity, which is just adorable. And then last, before we move on to the Plex prices, the other big piece of news, though it doesn't affect the market, is Manfred Sidious was forcibly removed from the CSM this week, as of this morning, actually. And if you guys were following the blog, I did post a investigation into possible seeing if there is merit to the rumor that capital changes leaked. More has come out since then, but I'm not really the avenue to share them, to be honest. This is a data blog, and I'd rather not get into he said, she said. Things are pretty chaotic, and the CSM is in a particular amount of turmoil, especially after Fozzie dropped the mic rather hard on Twitter about he said, don't rely on the CSM to be the voice of the people. And we'll have more to talk about this in January when campaign season starts up again. If campaign season starts up again, I have a feeling that there are some rumors that CSM 10 might be the last CSM. So we'll keep posted on this. I do like covering the CSM news, but it doesn't really affect the market except for when it does, when somebody leaks. And that's bad, so don't leak. Yeah, let's move on to Plex prices. Plex prices have started to rebound and are touching up against 1.2 billion again. Now with the Bloody Omer event over with the Plex sales. If you guys are interested in some of the tinfoiling behind the scenes on the Plex sale, go check out Noisy Gamer's blog. He talks about how there was a sale out of game, but then the post prices, the sale prices were better than expected, and not sure if this is like playing Steam shenanigans of, raising the price and then cutting it for sale kind of thing, or if it's actually an experiment. We'll see in the upcoming weeks. If I may tangent for 2 cents, I do believe the out-of-game price for Plex needs to come down to be at parity with account fees. And hopefully that would help take some of the heat out. I was hoping that some of this out-of-game price decreases would drive the prices lower, but we may not see anything until Black Friday, Cyber Monday, for a sustained drop. 1.2 is a little bit on the high end for buying in, so I would try not to buy Plex if you can avoid it. See if you can hold out about 3 or 4 weeks. And I don't really want to say that we'll get up to 125 before long, but without the pressure from the sale going on, it's a little hard to predict which direction it's going to go from right here. If we look at the 1-year view, again, I do appreciate that we're getting back in line with a more stable slope. If we chart from April to now, the lines are getting much more reasonable. The spike up here had me worried, and we're still higher than probably fair. 1.1 is probably where a quote-unquote healthy price would be, but I don't see how we get down to there. If we look at the other RMT tokens, the interesting part, so one, there was a bug with multiple pilot training certificates with the latest launch, but that seems to have been cleared up. There's some interesting stuff going on, especially the buy order margins shrinking up right with the Parallax release. but prices seem really stable. Again, Plex seems pretty decent. I think multiple pilot training certificates are just slightly overvalued. So if you're in those markets, now would be a decent time to sell. But as you can see, the buy margins are pretty healthy as well. So doing some margin trading here might not hurt anybody. And then if we look at the buy and sell spreads, again, things are looking relatively healthy, looking relatively positive. I just don't know how steep that positive trend is going to be going into the weekend and the rest of November. So we'll have to keep a close eye on that. And then last, I'm cheating, by the way. Let me make sure I do full disclosure. We're going to go rolling off of the 30-day as opposed to the 60-day starting average. Because the prediction is much better. I got a little tired of showing you the same bad graph every week, so we're going to give you a slightly less bad graph. Like I said, we're in a really healthy spot. If we go back to the 60-day average, we're still at the high end of that 60-day. But the trends look healthy. They look positive. We'll see as we get to November to see if we actually see this dip that I'm expecting with Black Friday sales, but we won't know until we get there. So moving on to minerals. Minerals were very quiet this week, at least at the first glance I looked over them. Titanium is nudging back up slightly, almost to 6.2. Same forecast as last week. I think that speculators into things like capitals and citadels overstated their positions on titanium, and I think that mining is healthy enough in nullsec that we should see some downward pressure. It's even right now. I wouldn't stockpile. I'm sort of putting a target for 6.0 over the course of November, but we'll see where it actually ends up in the interim. Pyrite is trending down, but weekly. We are bouncing between 11.2 and 11.4. Again, I expect it to be pretty stable here in that 11.2 mark. We might see it dip close to 11.0 by the end of November, but it's hard to predict right where we are. Mexilon is coming off of its high, and if you didn't sell before, you're going to get stuck holding the bag for a little while. Trends look negative for this one, especially if we go into the zoomed in view. I still think a long-term bet of 70 is decent, but you're probably going to end up holding on to that into March whenever the Capitals release comes out. So if you want to do a long-term speculation, again, I'd be shooting for a price under 60. But it's really hard to pick where the floor is on this one. So trade at your own risk. And if you bought in at 55, please just sell. Just, what are you doing? It's not going to get any better. Isogen was down sharply a few weeks ago, and it continues its downward slide. I expect it to hit the floor at about 113. Might slip all the way down to 110. Again, a little hard to say where this one's going. It looks like the action's flattened out. We might raise just slightly to 115, but the prices are looking pretty decent. Noxium had done a rebound a couple weeks ago and is still tracking up. I think this is artificial, to be honest, especially with this particularly large buyout. I think with nullsec productivity, the prices are going to track down, especially Noxium being a higher end mineral. North of 480, I think, is a little unhealthy, and I really do expect it to be back down at 460, but we might not see that before the end of the year. This will really depend on activity in nullsec and how much people are mining and killing those miners. So I expect this to come back down. If you're invested in Noxium, I'd be selling. But again, it's at a spot right this second. It could go both ways. So let's move on to Zydrine. Zydrine is still on the downward slide I had predicted. I'm still putting a price target of 1,000 on Zydrine. Again, for the same reason I just explained for Noxium, I think this is going to get oversupplied from nullsec. It's way too easy to get a lot of Zydrine and Megasite and Noxium, and it's easy to export it. And as much as you're going to need it to build capitals and citadels and those kind of things, you don't need as much as people were expecting. So I expect this to slide down into 1,000. I don't really expect it to go much below 1,000. If it hits 990, I'll be shocked. But I definitely expect continued weakness in Zydrine. And then last of the regular minerals, Megasite. I had been predicting 1,300, but it has rebounded back up to 1,400. I'm still sticking with that original prediction, though. I think 1,300 or even a little bit lower might be where Megasite ends up in the upcoming weeks. So keep an eye on that. If you can get it under 1,300, I think it's actually I would buy around 1,250 if you can get it. But you're going to be holding the bag for a while, waiting for more traffic to move the numbers up. And then last, Morphite is slinking down to the level I had predicted months ago, coming back down to 1,100. Looking at a lot of the Tech 2 markets, things are really weak across all the ships. And there's been some particular heat in some modules here and there, but they aren't really enough to keep the demand for Morphite high enough to keep the price up. So prices will keep slumping. If things start picking up in the markets, it might be a decent time to invest. But as you know, my track record has been pretty poor with predicting the actual path of Morphite. I'm usually a month ahead of or behind the curve on this one. So I expect it to bottom out at a little around 11,000. It might go down to 1050. That's a pretty weak position, but through December, if Tech 2 doesn't get picked up as a major meta, we could be falling even farther. So keep an eye on that. And then last, if we just look at all of the spreads, Noxium has a particularly wide buy and sell spread. I expect that to come down. Megasite has a particularly wide buy and sell spread right this second, so I expect it to come down. And Tritanium is still sort of trending up slightly, so I might be wrong about my original prediction. Moving on to fuel markets. Fuel markets have been weird and continue to be weird. So I said this last week, I'm going to say it again. Another board got up and talked about how Citadels were going to use their own special fuel blocks, and they were going to require all 4 fuel types. Unfortunately, he was pretty glib on the details, except that there might be some alchemy that can be done if you have a lot of one type and none of another. And yet the fuel markets stay completely stable. So, again, I keep saying, if you can buy isotopes under 700, I think it's a decent buy-in. I still think that Caldari fuel is way overvalued. But it continues to do that despite my, my protests. So, that's where we are with fuel isotopes. And then if we look at fuel blocks, things are even weirder, if that's possible. So last week we saw a huge spike in Galente fuel blocks for no particularly good reason. This might have been that people were transitioning moon mining setups from Caldari to Galente, because Caldari would let you run 2 reactions, and Galente lets you not have to bother them for 12 days or 14 days. I don't remember. But then all of a sudden, Caldari fuel blocks are spiking through the roof. So if you have Caldari fuel blocks, now's the time to sell. And if you are selling Caldari fuel blocks, sell them now. Like, go build some and sell them, because 20k a block is absolutely obnoxious. despite the fact that prices have stayed flat in the isotopes, and isotopes account for most of the cost of these products, we're seeing a lot more heat in the fuel block markets, coming closer to parity, which I think is extremely weird, but I don't keep a close enough eye on the actual build margins for fuel blocks. I really should add that to this view that shows the cost versus the actual effort. And then just to get a better zoom in, Gallente fuel blocks here we see spiked up, but without a huge volume spike, which makes it really, really weird. You'd expect with this kind of a buyout where the price resets that hard, that there would be a large set of orders to get it there, but yet the price is just setting spontaneously. This might have to do with some of the PI products, but I have a really hard time swallowing that prediction. And then the other interesting part, and if I may spoil ahead of the outliers section, Gallente control towers are spiking hard. So they were at 250 million-ish a few weeks ago at the start of October, and now they're north of 340. So if you've got Gallente control towers, now's a great time to sell them. I know I'll be selling some. I've got a little stash that I think I'm going to liquidate. Wasn't expecting this, but if you can, sell them. Moving on to outliers. We start where we always do with advanced materials. Things have been really quiet in advanced materials. I know that some of the metamaterials are tracking down, but they tend to be unstable, fluxing up and down pretty hard. All of the mid-range ones like fulleриdes and phenolic composites and nanotransistors are staying pretty stable from where they were last week, even if they are on a slightly downward curve. And the low-end carbides are all tracking down, but are still pretty decent for the prices they are. Specifically, crystalline carbonide is still a pretty healthy price overall. Under the hood, though, cadmium is dropping pretty hard. I believe that's an R16. I always have a 50-50 chance on whether I get these right. Again, a lot of fights in Sovnol have been happening at Moons, so we might be seeing more supply action in the actual Moon products as Moons change hands. So just keep an eye on that. And then the darlings, PI4s have been going gangbusters since Nullarbor's announcement came out. Now, I'm going to do a bit of a victory lap here. I said back at FanFest to invest in P4s. I thought that they would be a significant part of the picture for Citadel production and structure production, even though I had no legs to stand on. And lo and behold, all the components are up like 20% over what they were before the announcement. So if you followed my advice, I know there are a couple of people. I did hear from Tora Bushido that he invested in this, and if anybody else did, I would love to hear from you, because I'm not used to getting slam dunks, and I've got a couple of them in quick succession. Now, this one is just by dumb luck that he finally announced what they were going to be made of. So I'm just going to do that quick victory lap and encourage you guys that if you made money off that particular thing, that a 10% commission is customary. Not that anyone will send me any money. So I'm going to write more about this, hopefully for Eve News 24 in the upcoming week. But that's really dependent on real life work and where things end up in the meantime. The other star in this, which I probably should have predicted, but I'm not very good at the salvage market is that when they announced the mechanics behind Citadel rigs, they announced where they expect them to be price-wise, and boy howdy, did a lot of the salvage markets go nuts. Specifically for tank modules, things like ward consoles and conductive polymer, fried interface circuits, which I think are pretty much in everything, all took significant steps upwards. The more general stuff, your tripped power circuits, your charred microcircuits, are staying relatively stable. But if you guys want to get in on some action, I believe that there's still some play to come out of this market, and where the BPOs for the straight components for the actual Citadels is going to be absurdly expensive. The rigs might be a decent spot for a well-adjusted industrialist to be working in. So I would be looking at stocking up on tanking the tanking ones like titanium bars, armor plates, ward consoles, and perhaps some of the general stuff like your fried interface circuits and your trip power circuits. If we look at the T2 market, things are even stranger. We see a huge jump in drone transceivers and trigger units, and enhanced ward consoles, and I believe the intact armor plates. Actually, no, I lied about the intact armor plates. So the prices are tracking up pretty handsomely. I probably should have called this one, so sorry for not being as good at this as I pretend to be. And then continuing on with P4s, I should have done this in a different order. We're looking at temperate command centers. They've been going nuts because this is where you need to be producing those P4s are on temperates and on barons. I should have pulled the prices for the POCOs. I'm sorry about that. I'll see if I can go tweet it out after the show. I do expect there to be a bit of a gold rush out in Galente Caldari Warzone space, and maybe out in places like Vale of the Silent, where you can do a lot of high-grade PI within a single jump freighter jump. Listings on those, I know that they're NPC, but I just thought it was interesting that they actually flagged out of normal in the meantime. Moving on to ships, we don't have a lot of ships to cover this week. Thorax flagged again. We saw this a few weeks back that it looked like a constraint, maybe a buyout, and then an oversupply by producers, and then we're seeing the spike again. I'm not sure what's really driving this under the hood, just that it's a weird pattern. Also, the Talos is way high. Now, if you can go make it, now would be the best time to do it. Like right now, put them in the oven, because I expect this action to be over by the weekend. They are just way too high outside of the price of materials. I don't know if this is for an event or if there's an actual constraint, but Taloses are just crazy at the moment. Another one I wanted to bring up for just a sec are heavy assault cruisers. We're seeing some more heat in the Cerberus, though that seems to be subsiding with production. And the Zealot looks like it's doing a similar pattern. Again, this might be for the Amar Championships. Vagabond and Ishtar continue to be relatively weak. Tactical destroyers were interesting this week. I know that there's 4, but I've got a bug somewhere, so you don't get to see the Hecate. The Confessor was tracking down rather significantly when I pulled the data this morning, and the Jackdaw is tracking up rather significantly. I don't have my fingers on the pulses of of EFT enough to really tell you specifically why, but that if you were producing confessors, you might want to go switch the wheels over to jackdaws. Next, that does taste weird. Next, looking at a fighter, we're looking at the Energy, which I don't think anybody can pronounce it. They have been tracking down since Eve Vegas, but have since rebounded. And we're going to talk about this again when we get to geckos, because I have a whole thing about geckos at the end. I find this kind of interesting. The prices should stay pretty stable. They're not hard to build, and the blueprints aren't that expensive. But the prices look like that somebody was selling off a whole bunch, and things are resettling. So I don't think this is particularly a buy unless you manage to get in on this dip earlier in the week. Another interesting one, because I must have misunderstood the news. We're looking at Siege Warfare Link Shield Harmonizing 2, which increases the resistances on all of your fleet's shields. And the prices on this are tracking a lot higher than I'd expect, especially given that it seems that Brain in a Box is the first step towards a nerf in off-grid boosting. So the prices are very high at the moment. I can't really get behind that they're going to stay high. I'm actually kind of expecting them to crash back down to the, I believe that's the 2 million mark. So if you can get your hands on some and sell them at 5 million, then do so. But there's only like 40 or 50 sold every day. So not sure what's driving this. It was also announced, I should have put this in the news, that there is a new pass of Tiericide going out for Nosferatus and energy transfers, and warp jammers, I think is the last one. Also some other products attached to it. These flagged days early, so it sounds like the Tiericide stuff had come out this morning, but these flags started on Sunday. So we're looking at Medium Capacitor Booster 2, which I would get a little suspicious about if you think that may have leaked out, because if you believe you're going to use more energy neutralizers, you kind of need more capacitor boosters to drive them. This might actually be nothing, but it's kind of weird. And another interesting one is the Ion Blaster Cannon 2s are tracking up significantly. It looks like somebody might have a new meta. Not sure exactly what or where yet. Have not heard any particular news yet. But we'll see in the upcoming week. And last but not least, let's move on to the prediction review. We're going to start with the Gecko, which has been extremely interesting. So I did last week talk about Blake Armitage has posted a blog about the volatility and don't sell your geckos yet, and was right, but then there's still some weirdness going on where we rebounded last week, and then we're in the floor during the week and have since sort of been bouncing around weirdly. This doesn't show up in the crest data. The actual buy and sell spreads aren't enough to really drive this. I think that this 85-90 million mark buy-in point is actually a pretty decent one. So if you needed geckos, I still think geckos are useful, especially in with other drone ships like your Gilas and your VNIs. But the prices I don't think are going to get much better than 85. Speaking of the Gila, again, we saw it high last week and low this week. If you believe in the pattern, you might want to go buy in now. This looks like it's tracking down, but I expect it to overcorrect. Not sure exactly who would be driving it, but I do expect it to turn around briefly before going down further. I have a hard time really saying that Gilas are going to stay below 250, but I honestly don't know. And then to go back to the CSM investigation, I just wanted to repost the some of the flags we saw from that because I have an R script and I'm going to use it. Things are looking better than expected. Again, the spike in the drone control unit is suspicious, but we're tracking down with minerals again. Siege modules was the one that really raised my heckles, but it's been tracking back down. I still think this one might have some action in it if you're really patient, especially with the idea that Dreads will get a subcap engagement utility. So I have a feeling that siege modules will be needed. Siege Module 2s were a bit more pronounced and are still pretty low. Again, the volumes on these are so low, I have a really hard time saying to invest in them because I expect hundreds of people to see this, and there are like a dozen sold a day, so it's not really that great an opportunity. And then the Triage Module was the other interesting one that has been up and down. I believe this might actually track up again north of 80 million once the transmogrification information comes out. That it has been promised that there will be a way to get the fax capitals on launch day. That there's going to be something you can do to change your existing carrier into a fax carrier. They haven't outlined what that is yet, though. So I expect triage modules to track up. And again, we keep seeing the Tech 2 modules stay high. And at 110 million, this might be a chance to sneak in to sell it out at 115. Again, volumes are extremely low. So please don't jump on this with a ton of money. You're going to be stuck with an investment for a very long time on this one. And with that, we're going to end the show there. Again, I've been your host, Lockefox, and this has been the Eve Prosper Market Show. If you want to tune in, all you got to remember is Eve Prosper. That'll get you to Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and the blog. We're live on Twitch and YouTube every Friday, 0300. That's a new time than usual, but still Thursday night US. Thanks to the time change. And if you want to support the show more directly, please stop by our Patreon. Your guys' support really does mean a lot to us. It helps keep the lights on. And don't forget to stop by the blog. There is a survey there about monetization that I'd love to hear everyone's feedback on. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll be back at the same time next week with yet more market news.